Salut et bienvenue sur Mediapart. C'est un film exceptionnel dont Mediapart est partenaire et qui sort le 13 novembre sur nos écrans en France. Il s'appelle No Other Land. C'est un documentaire sur un village de Cisjordanie qui s'appelle Masafer Yatta, que l'armée israélienne et les colons israéliens cherchent à détruire à tout prix depuis des décennies. Harcèlement, bulldozers, incursions, intimidations. Les habitants résistent et ce film raconte leur lutte. Un film comme une métaphore de la situation au Proche-Orient, tandis que la guerre d'Israël s'est étendue au Liban et que depuis un an, la vie à Gaza est méthodiquement réduite en cendres. Ses co-réalisateurs, le journaliste d'investigation israélien Yuval Abraham et l'activiste palestinien Basel Adra sont en France ces jours-ci. Ils sont nos invités. C'est à l'air libre, l'émission en accès libre de Mediapart. Et à partir de maintenant, je vais passer à l'anglais pour discuter avec mes invités. Évidemment, bien sûr, pour vous, cette émission est sous-titrée. Bonjour, Basel Adra et Yuval Abraham. Yuval et Basel Adra.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here on the show today. Your movie, No Other Land, got the documentary award at the Berlin Movie Festival this year. It's out in movie theaters in a few days in France, on November 13th. You took 5 years to do it. It's a powerful, impressive movie. Each and every minute, actually, we are witnessing the harassing of the Israeli army and settlers in Masafer Yatta. Rachel Shore and Habdan Bala are the other co-authors of this movie, but it's both of you that we mainly see in this film. I may introduce the both of you right now. Yuval Abraham, you're also not only a filmmaker, but also a famous investigative journalist in Israel. You're working for different independent media, such as Local Call or 972, plus 972, which is a newsroom with Israeli and Palestinian journalists. You also wrote in the past for different media outlets in the world. And over the last months, we talk about that later, you've published some of, I think, the most important investigative stories that have been written about the Israeli war in Gaza. Basel Adra, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. You've become a vocal voice of the Palestinian cause for self-determination and the fight against occupation. You were born in this village, Masafer Yatta. This is a very ancient collection of Palestinian villages in the very southern side of the West Bank, some villages that the Israeli army and the settlers have been trying to dismantle and destroy for years. We'll see the trailer right after, but of course, it's difficult to start this conversation without talking about what we all have on the mind every day, what you have on the mind every day right now. This daily nightmare we're seeing on our screens that you're seeing directly, Basel. Civilians being killed each day in Gaza by the Israeli army. A desperate humanitarian situation right now, especially in the north of the Gaza Strip. Ongoing attacks in the West Bank. An escalation in Lebanon, and maybe tomorrow with Iran, and a totally deadlocked political situation. Is this war, in your opinion, Basel, never-ending war?
Well, hard to tell, to be honest, about where this war going to. It's, I mean, it's in the hand of the Israeli government, and they're the only ones like really deciding what to do, and they don't have anyone in the international community who's putting limits or who's trying to prevent the escalation in the region.
You think nobody is trying to?
Nobody is trying to, even if they are saying it in words. Nobody is like, I mean, a very simple example. If the Americans who all day and night saying that we are working for a ceasefire, but they keep delivering weapons and jets to Israel. I mean, if you stop that, and that's the war, how it will stop.
Yuval?
I agree with Basel, and I think for me another point is that it's very clear to me that this is going on because Netanyahu is looking at the polls, and after October 7th he lost popularity in a dramatic way, and every single month since he's been regaining popularity in the Israeli media, and I think it's not the only reason, but to a large degree the bombing and the massacres in Gaza are continuing just because he wants to continue to be prime minister. He's afraid that when it stops he will lose his position as prime minister. And it's a very cynical attitude, not only towards the Palestinian people we are witnessing. I just read recently, other than the 17,000 children that were killed, there is 20,000 children in Gaza who are missing. So tens of thousands of children, you know. So other than that, it's extremely cynical, I believe, towards the Israeli people and the Israeli hostages and generally. So And yes, and I agree with Basel. I mean, there needs to be an international intervention to make it stop, and it's not happening.
Yeah. Basel, on X, a few days ago, you sent this message that many Palestinian people send right now to the world, to the Western world, as people say. Being silent is being complicit. Do you hear silence all over the place?
Our problem with the West, I mean, not with all the people for sure, but with the governments, with those who supporting Israel, not just they're complicit, but they're supporting this live genocide. That they're like everywhere they go on their phones, they can see images and videos that not just Palestinian journalists who sacrifice their lives to film, but Israeli soldiers who commit these crimes are uploading it. And they're not just silenced, but I said they're supporting it with money, with weapons, with like diplomats cover, with not putting an end for this.
Yuval, I think both of you, maybe you, I don't know, during a recent trip in the US to show the movie, you said we wanted to do this movie, we'll see the trailer in a bit, to both document a war crime happening now in the occupied West Bank, but also to do a plea for a different future. What does it mean? It's not just a movie about destructions and harassment, it's also something else that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, we made this movie as a collective, right? We are 2 Israelis and 2 Palestinians. And for us, it's an act of co-resistance. So we are all opposed to the occupation and to the situation where, you know, millions of Palestinians have no voting rights. They are living under Israeli rule. They are being massacred and killed in their tens of thousands in Gaza. And I, as an Israeli, believe that, you know, my people cannot be secure if the Palestinian people are not free. And if we want to imagine a future where both people, the Palestinian people and the Israeli people, have political rights and individual rights in the Holy Lands, they have mutual security, we need to understand that we are dependent on one another. And you cannot cause such immense suffering to another group of people and imagine that your life can continue to be normal. And therefore, I think, you know, for me, it is in the best interest of everybody to push towards a political solution. And unfortunately, for decades, as Basel has said very, very clearly, the world has allowed this occupation to continue in an ongoing way for decades, before we were born and before our fathers and mothers were born. It's already a 3rd generation that is living this. So yes, we do want to build a different future. And our film, you know, the film shows the work that we do together. And we ask ourselves this question: how can we find a path for that when all the paths are blocked right now? So yes, I mean, yeah.
We're going to see the trailer of your movie, Now the Land, the story of this continuous fight of Masafer Yatta inhabitants to stay on their land, because for them, there's no other land. Let's watch it.
1,000 Palestinians face one of the single biggest expulsion decisions since the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories began in 1967.
مسافر يطا هي المكان اللي كبرت فيه. بداية تصويري هي بداية نهاية.
أنا يوفال، كيفك؟
هو صحفي بده يكتب عن هذا المعادي ولا اليهود؟ عالم كامل مبني على الفصل.
ممكن يكون أخوك أو صاحبك إجا وهدم بيه.
إيش ممكن نساوي يعني؟
He spent years documenting Israeli efforts to evict Palestinians living in Masafer Yatta.
אני קשור לפה כי הדברים האלה קורים בשמי.
بدك شيء يصير كل شيء بسرعة والله شيء بيستمر لسنين. يدمرونا شوي شوي. أصعب نضال هو الثبات في الأرض. مسافر يطا موجودة لسبب واحد. الناس بتوجد حياة لنفسها.
Basel, maybe a few words about the context. Masafer Yatta, your town, your village, your place, has been declared a military zone by the Israeli army as soon as the 1980s, long time ago, decades ago. And you were only, I think, 3 years old in 1999 when the Israeli army started to try to destroy your place. And your whole life, actually, you've seen bulldozers destroying homes, the Israeli army trying to push the inhabitants out, and now settlers doing that too. It's constant. It's your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, it's part of the game. In the end of the day, the bigger picture is Israel always want to steal our land. It's always want an empty land without the Palestinians in it. It's always want to annex more lands without Palestinians living inside it. That doesn't mean that I want to be annexed to Israel, like with our land, but this is what they are doing basically. So all this game of laws, of declaring a firing zone or a military zone of our land, a state land, they're using, as we Palestinians living under this military control, that the Israeli army is occupying us. So they are doing what law they want, and whenever they want. So for stealing our land, they make these different laws. And one of it, it's the firing zone or the military zone, where they declared 14 of Masafer Yatta communities out of 20 as a military zone in order to push the people, like our people, out of it, so they can take this settlement and this land for the settlements. And there was like a document that Yuval found from the minister back then who signed this law, and he writing there in this secret documents that very clearly that he's making this law in order to keep the land for the settlements and for the settlers in the future, not as they claim for the military to do training.
Yeah, because Yuval Abraham, there is evidence, there are proofs that this military zone was declared a military zone. There are documents that show that it was just to be able to put new settlements on.
Yeah. So the Israeli state, we found it in the Israeli State Archive, which the documents were classified. They were written in the late 70s and the early 80s, these documents, and then 40 years later they declassified them and forgot about them there, and we found, and it says very clearly, I mean, this is Ariel Sharon who really pushed the settlement policies. He became the prime minister. And as Basel says, he says, the only reason for making this military training zone is so the land can go to the settlements. And if you think about it, think how crazy it is that you have villages of people, of farmers who are living.
Who lives here for very, very, very long
for decades,
forever.
You see their I mean, very ancient places. And the military that is controlling them, that is deciding on their lives, is telling them, we need to kick you out so we can do tank training on your land, which we acknowledge is your private land, but we wanted to do tank training. I mean, it's clearly an excuse to, as Basel said, to take over this land. Yeah.
And by the way, new settlements have popped up, especially over the last years, with 500,000 settlers in the whole West Bank right now. Some of them very close to where Palestinian people live. And since October 7, as we see in the movie, there were a lot of attacks by the settlers. If we speak only of Masafer Yatta, it happened very close to your place.
Yeah. Yeah, so always they've been living, and always they wanted to expand their illegal settlements and outposts toward our communities and our homes, so that we will be afraid and we will be gone and leave the land. And this is happened, and this is real, because they have the power and they can build whatever they want, and they have guns and they have dogs and they have drones and they have like whatever the military and the police is backing them, supporting them. So since October, 6 communities from my area left because of these attacks by settlers and soldiers, and especially during the night, like by burning people's homes and destroying their water wells and cutting their electricity, torturing them, like after arresting them.
And some members of your family also were...
My cousin, for example, I don't know, it's also there is like a clear video that on October 13th, he was like, after finishing prayer, he was like, hear the sound of children and women screaming that there is like settlers in the community. And he was just walking up toward the settlers' place, and the settler approached him, and I was filming by chance at that moment, like because I hear the sound, I also ran with my camera, I start to film the 2 settlers and the soldier. And the settler like basically pushed him in his chest, and one stepped back and then shot my cousin in his stomach.
Yeah.
And he stayed like over than 80 days in the hospital. He's still in recovering and still going for like back and forth for a doctor. And we see the settler himself coming back to do another harassments and another attacks in the community. So he's not arrested. He's not like facing any consequences for his like crime.
And we're going to watch another, not this excerpt because that's also in the movie what you just described, but we're going to see another excerpt of the movie Basel. Here's what's happening so every day in Masafer Yatta and other places in the West Bank.
8 in the morning, they're starting a new policy.
And we return to my home.
من وين بدي اجي؟ والله العظيم بدي احمله بدي اروح اوريه للمستشفى.
لفلسطيني اسوق. فهمت؟ اصبغ لي اذا.
Take time, but at the end we believe that we will win it.
Hello everyone, since the morning until now, happening demolitions of homes in Masafer Yatta.
الشغل هذا ليه؟
أغيزة في محكمة
في محكمة؟ الله يفضل عرض المحكمة ما هي محكمة المستوطنين
ولا حاجة يروح محكمة
محكمة المستوطنين
It takes time. One water drop doesn't make change, but keep dropping the water, it will make change.
It's happening also this morning that this convey is coming to Masafer Yatta. There are hundreds of demolition orders. The people don't know which house, which village they're gonna choose today.
Basel, maybe to let us understand to the people who watch the show, is it that every day or really like very often in the week you see bulldozers coming into the community or, as you say in the movie, we never know when they're going to come. Can you describe how is it to live under such a threat, a permanent threat that is always in the air?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I know a friend of mine from one of the communities that in 2 years he lost his home 5 times. They destroyed it and he rebuilt it. And he totally told me that my life is to have a home, to rebuild my home. This is, I don't go to work for my family. I don't go to do my regular life. I just build the home, and building the home, it's another story that Yuval also know this, like, because they not just come and destroy the home, but they track the when you bringing the materials, so they could catch, like in when you're taking materials in the community and confiscate it and arrest you and take your truck. So you need to hide the materials during the night and build it during the night and try to hide as much as you can so you can succeed to build a home. Otherwise, if you are in the middle, they can destroy it and take the materials from you. But this is a policy that Israel doing not just in the West Bank, not just in Masafer Yatta, but all over against Palestinians, even in East Jerusalem, even inside Israel itself, even like everywhere where Palestinians, this is like a policy that they are like destroying homes, meaning like to make the life of the Palestinians miserable everywhere they're living. So they don't have rights, they don't feel safe, they don't feel that they can have homes, so they would look for another place to go live in it.
But also that there's something that we also see in the movie and that we documented on Mediapart a few years ago, is that in this village, in this community of Masafer Yatta, many people who don't want to leave but don't have a home anymore and don't want to risk to have a new home destroyed, they live in the caves because there are some natural carved caves in the area and they live here. There are many families who live in caves.
So these caves are mostly not natural at all. These caves are digged by people like my grandfather, like the father of my grandfather, all over Masafer Yatta, and it's like something special on the town, even for Palestinians. And it's like the ID for the land. Everybody there are proud that they have cave, that their family used to come and lived like in this cave long time ago. And exactly like some of these cave even become like not good for to live in it, like because of the natural, and they are like because of the nature, sorry, and because of the
humidity.
Yeah. Also, the stones become like more weak by the time.
So it's dangerous.
Because this is So some of them are really dangerous, and some of them even fall from the rain and the snow. But yeah, this is a solution for so many families in Masafer Yatta after they lose their homes.
And the movie, there is another dramatic event. It was, I think, 2022 when the school, the primary school, was destroyed. We're gonna watch this excerpt. So, Basel, we see here that not just homes are being destroyed, but other aspects of life, like education, like schools. And I think it was a really newly built school, right?
It was a newly built school. The students didn't have other solution than study in some donated like room by the community or a tent, also in a cave. And they got a project to build this school, and when they built it, it was destroyed. But there are other like 6 schools in the area that are under threat of demolitions, and anytime they could be destroyed by the military. But this is like also a strategy, not just the schools and just homes, as you're saying, but like all the infrastructure for us Palestinians living in this area, it's prevented and it's illegal according to this military law. So, for example, even clean water to drink is prevented, and they, like, for example, cutted water pipes so many times when we like connect them. Electricity, the same thing. Homes, clinics, the same thing. The road itself, they bulldozer the road so it won't be used by cars, by tractors, like to transfer things. So they want us to live in a miserable life, in unlivable life. So you would be like, okay, I'm done, I'm tired, I'm gonna leave. Because if Israel go tomorrow, bring a truck and put Palestinians in it, this is like a tough picture that need to explain to the world why they're doing this. So instead of this, they're doing what we are showing in no other land by destroying our homes, our schools, our water, our electricity, and building settlements. So we would live by ourselves after like many years of suffering.
By exhaustion, by exhaustion in a way. Yuval Abraham, destroying school, access to water, preventing people from moving and from having a proper life. This is not only what we see in the West Bank right now. This is also what is being described in Gaza and now in the South Lebanon. What does it mean?
Yeah, I think recently there was now a spatial analysis by Forensic Architecture. It's a group of architects that they looked at the way Israel has bombed Gaza, and they focused on what they called life-sustaining buildings and architecture that was bombed. So Gaza had, before October 7th, 564 schools, 477 of those schools, so that's 75% of the schools in Gaza were bombed or targeted by the Israeli military. 16 universities were completely targeted and destroyed. 70% of the agricultural lands, the water wells, bakeries, graveyards. The place as a place where life can exist was annihilated, whether it is by the Israeli Air Force's bombing or the soldiers on the ground who went house after house and burnt it. And I think, this means several things. First of all, I don't know if people realize the sense of urgency that exists. Every day that this is not stopped is another hundreds, if not thousands of Palestinians who will die, because people are speaking about the 50,000, 60,000 who are dead, and I'm saying that what the health ministry publishes, and that at least 10,000 who are under the rubble. But the indirect consequences of the bombing, of this destruction of the schools, of 650,000 children did not study anything for a year in Gaza. So the indirect consequences will accompany us for generations. And just the rebuilding of this, I mean, it hasn't even started. The starvation is still ongoing. So, it's very hard to go on. Really, I think all of us should place all the pressure we have so this stops.
Yeah, and you are. Is it for you very clear that it's a totally methodic way? Basel say about this talk about this in the West Bank, a very methodic way to destroy life, because the Israeli government, they say we want to target our enemies.
The Israeli government says it's a war against Hamas, right? And Hamas did commit horrible atrocities on October 7, including 3 people that I know that were killed. Mm-hmm. And just like this killing of civilians is not justified by what came before October 7th, because there was, Gaza was under siege, it was an open-air prison, Palestinians have been living under decades of occupation. It does not justify to kill civilians or to kidnap children. It does not. You cannot justify this extermination of a people, right? 3% of the population killed, by referencing to October 7th. A crime does not justify a series of crimes. And Israel can claim that its intention is to target Hamas, and we cannot be in their head to know what their intention is. I think that if you look at the statements of Israeli leaders and soldiers on the ground who are talking about revenge, it places a question mark around, is this really the intention? But when the results are so horrific, I don't think we should be talking, I don't think the intentions matter that much anymore. When you kill so many children, does it matter if you say you killed those children for reason X or reason Y? I don't think it does. At a certain point, I mean, you asked, is Israel systematically destroying life-sustaining? Yes, that is the results. If you look at Gaza right now, that is the results on the ground. What do you call it when 75% of the schools are destroyed, when water wells are destroyed, when people cannot have, a truck of water or food has not entered northern Gaza, where 300,000 people are living for weeks. You look at people, how skinny they are. I mean, it's very clear to me.
Basel, I would like to talk some aspects of the movie. In the movie, we see your father a lot. He's somebody who, like you, has been fighting before you against the occupation. And your family is very involved in this fight. First of all, how is he? Because I've seen on social media a few days ago that he was arrested. How is he, your father?
Yeah, he's good. They arrest him just for no reason, just because they can do it from the home when they were passing nearby. And they saw my little sister taking pictures with the phone for the soldiers, and they accused my father telling her to take pictures. They kidnapped him for a few hours in the outpost that it's nearby, and then they released him. But they do it now a lot because they have their power is very there's no limits, as we say. There is nobody is watching what the military is doing, and a lot of these soldiers actually are the settlers that comes from these outposts and settlements. So they know me, they know my father, they know the activists in person, and they really want to do any kind of revenge against us in any opportunity they can for any reason if they have. And
it's something that we see a lot in the movie through you, through your father's story, through other people, other inhabitants, which is also the fact that, okay, there is all these threats all day long, all year long, but they want to stay.
Yeah, I mean, we very hard to find another home, another land, and if we do it, I don't know if people would leave. I mean, this is the land that we grow up in, that all our life is there as a community, not just as a members, as individuals, but as a community, has existed in this community, and we want to continue to do so. And it's not easy to give up Like whatever you confront, it's not easy that you decide, okay, I don't want to live here anymore. I'm afraid. It's like it's hard, so I'm going to change my place. It's not like that we have a power or that we have like something strong in our hands that we want to face them. No, we basically are very powerless in front of this brutal occupation machine. But at the same time, it's our land, it's our home, it's our families, and we want to keep living there.
And the movie, someday Yuval, you say that maybe images sometimes are stronger than words, and then and this is what also you try to do with this movie. This movie is full of very moving stories, and maybe we will take a minute to talk about Haroun. Haroun, that's this guy. On this picture taken by our staff journalist at Mediapart, Joseph Confavreux. It was 2 years ago with his parents, Rasmi and Farissa. Their family live in a cave. You can see that. And some years ago, he had been shot for trying to prevent Israeli soldiers from stealing his home generator, electricity generator. And you said in an interview, Basel, he tried to fight for something very basic that everybody else in the world has. 2 years ago, he died.
Yeah, I mean, nobody should fight for a generator, for a water, for a school. Nobody should sacrifice their life for those rights. Everybody should have these basics in order to have like a life with dignity. But us Palestinians are like get killed, and our life can be easily lost by the Israeli occupation for trying to have water or a home or a school or a generator such as Haroun. Haroun's story is very tragic, like really hard, and it left effect in everyone in us, in the community, and his parents. And after even he was shot, he lived almost 2 years like paralyzed totally. And how they kept denying and rejecting his mother's request to build a clean room that he can live in it, other than the cave. But they refused, and they still refusing. Haroun passed away 1 year ago from his injury. And yeah, I mean, his story, it's in the movie, and it means a lot for us to have it in this documentary, because it shows the prices of that Palestinians can pay to have like what's called basics for the people here.
And Yuval, in the movie, we see his mother, Haroun. She's with other journalists that come to see his son, to tell the story of Masafer Yatta, and she says, so many people came here and it doesn't change anything to the situation of Haroun. Is this also the reason why you wanted to do this movie, to have a bigger impact? Because also, like when Joseph, our colleague, went there in Masafer Yatta, he also interviewed other people who say, like in Israel, everybody, in the world, everybody tried to forget what's happening in the West Bank and in Gaza.
It's a question that I ask myself as a journalist, every single day. What is the meaning of what we are doing? Yeah, and is it changing in people's lives, especially because you're constantly in an interaction and you're constantly meeting people and talking to people who are suffering tremendously, and they're giving you something. They're giving you their time, and sometimes for his mother to have to tell her son is like dying in a cave, and she can't build a house for him because the military will destroy the house. And I can imagine, through her eyes, looking at the journalists coming and going, and the film directors coming and going, and her son is still in the cave. And I don't have the clear answer, because you're right. Journalism is important, and showing the images is important. But especially now, when things are just getting worse and worse, we are faced with this question. And I think it was important for us to put it in the film. In the film, we also reflect a lot. There is conversations between me and Basel. We are talking about what we are doing, what is effective, what isn't effective, to place a question mark around exactly this issue. And the film, in a way, is also criticizing itself. We think people in France are going to go to the cinema and they're going to watch the film, and they're going to be emotionally moved, we hope, by the film. And then what, right? This is something that we literally ask in the film. What kind of actions can we take, can you take in France to stop this immoral from continuing?
Yeah, and as you raised the question, there was a question for later, and we see another except too. But what would you, as you are in France right now, what would you ask if they listen to the leaders of France, to this French government or politicians? What message would you like to send today?
I think it's clear to me that France, and generally powerful countries in Europe, need to change their foreign policy with regards to Israel and Palestine. There needs to be a wall-to-wall recognition in a Palestinian state. France, I think it's shameful that it did not recognize Palestine as a state yet. There needs to be very intense pressure on Israel as a state to end the ICJ, the highest court in the world, recently ruled that the occupation in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and the East Jerusalem is illegal. And when we have this ruling, I mean, if we respect international law, and France is, in a way, the place where, the French Revolution, and which is about equality. Like, me and Basel are not equal. We're living under the same regime, the same Israeli regime, yet I am under a civilian law and Basel is under military law. I can vote, Basel cannot vote. I mean, this is the definition. I mean, we use the word apartheid to describe it, both the Israeli human rights organizations and the Palestinian human rights organizations. But whatever word you want to use, this is the opposite of what France and French are supposed to stand for. So why is there no harsher sanctions and against the Israeli state? So there is pressure to stop it, so we can change it, so we can have a political solution. So I know, some people in France say, well, because of Hamas. This is exactly what empowered Hamas over decades. Mm-hmm. The fact that me and Basel were born in the 90s, when the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat, agreed basically to a two-state solution. The fact that Israel has since then continued the settlements, continued expanding settlements, there is 3 times as many settlers as there were, is what is bringing us to this depraved situation that we are in. So I would ask French leaders to recognize a Palestinian state, to place a boycott and an embargo on the settlement enterprise, so that we in Israel can feel we are paying a price for what is going on.
Basel, what would you, if you had some?
I mean, I agree with everything. Yeah, this is what I hope, that if we have a hope anymore, that the world will, also French people and French leader will act, not just keep saying and criticize what's happening on social media and here and there, but do actions. It's time to do actions, and without actions, nothing can change.
Maybe we see a last excerpt because you were talking about your relationship and what it says and how you talk about this situation. It's in the movie where, let's be very clear, it's mostly a story of occupation and destruction and also resilience, this movie, but it's also a story of friendship between the two of you. And Yuval, at the beginning, when you arrive at the village as an Israeli citizen, journalist, Israeli citizen, you're being asked a lot of questions by the inhabitants. Let's have a look.
هاي أنا يوفال كيفك؟ بس شوي يوفال عشان في ناس
سألوك إذا أنا صحفي إسرائيلي؟
لا ساعات
يعني كم بيت ضل في المركز بس؟
في بيوت اللي شفناها أول طريق، هاي الغرفة، هاي إحنا فوق الكهف. في هاللي ساكنين هون جوا الحدود.
How are you? لا أنا بحكي إنجليزي، إيش معي عربي؟
صحفي.
من وين حضرتك؟
بير 7.
أهلا وسهلا، يعني 48.
لا يهودي.
عندكم إياه؟ والله؟ أنت يهودي بتسالم؟ بتزاي بتسالم؟ طب شو رأيك؟ كيف طب المحكمة العدل العليا اللي بيسموها العدل كيف حكمت للجيش إن هاي الأرض لهم؟
وين بيسكنون؟
في الكهوف 1990 الختيارية الأولانيين الثلاثينات يمكن.
It's an interesting excerpt because it shows that Israeli people and Palestinian people came together provided the fact that occupation is being recognized, seen and recognized, that apartheid is being seen and recognized. That's the condition. I have the feeling that's what you see in the film.
I mean, it still doesn't make it easy, and still, I think even after you recognize everything, of course, we are still complicit in it. Even if you make those statements, and it's still difficult for some Palestinians, I think, to do this, and it's understandable. But for me, this is a path that I really believe in, because first of all, I feel I have a responsibility for the occupation as an Israeli citizen. And second of all, I want to change. I mean, as I said before, I think it's in the best interest of my people as well to change these policies. And for me, this is something that I believe in. Yes.
Basel, about this relationship, what does it say?
Yeah, the relationship is showing that first of all, Yuval mentioned that we're trying to show the power imbalance between Palestinian and Israeli, how they're living in this land by showing our characters in the movie. But also, like in Masafer Yatta, we welcome people like Yuval, who is opposing and who's like talking clearly about the occupation, about the apartheid, but not all the Israelis are like that, for sure. There is who denying the occupation, who's denying the apartheid and supporting it.
I would like to come back to what happened this year about You movie. I said that you earned the Berlin Movie Festival for Best Documentary, but that was crazy time at the time. You were on the stage, you called for a ceasefire for the end of apartheid.
Very hard for me to celebrate when there are tens of thousands of my people being slaughtered and massacred by Israel in Gaza.
I'm free to move where I want in this land. Basel is like millions of Palestinians locked in the occupied West Bank. This situation of apartheid between us, this inequality, it has to end.
And you also called for the end of weapons delivery to Israel in Germany. And there was a huge outcry in Germany. You also, Yuval, personally were deemed as anti-Semite.
By some crazy German politicians,
Yeah, but a lot of people also in the media in Germany. You, whose history is also linked to Holocaust with people who died in your family. And also you received some threats, and your family too. How did you experience that? And what was it the sign of? What did he say?
I never felt so angry at Germany and at Germans, because I felt it's, to me it was an example of how this accusation, as an individual who, my family, my grandmother was born in a concentration camp in Libya, and most of her family was murdered. My other grandmother and grandfather, most of their family was murdered in Eastern Europe during the Holocaust. And to see how anti-Semitism, which is very real, it's a real phenomenon, it's rising today on the right, it's rising on the left, and we see it. When you are weaponizing it to silence not only Palestinian voices, but also Israelis and Jewish people who are on the left, who oppose the occupation, who oppose this atrocious assault in Gaza, then you're emptying the word out of meaning. And because for me, this word carries a lot of weight because of my history and because of its relevance to the present, to look at cynical people in the German media and like the German mayor of Berlin, using that word for why? Because we called for equality? Because we called for what? For an end of the bombing? What does that have to do with? It's so crazy and so irresponsible.
And for you, Basel, what did it say about the way Palestinian people are being seen in this conversation?
I mean, very bad. These governments and this like right wing always, I think, they want to justify their actions and what they are doing, and I think they feel and they know what they are doing is wrong. I think these governments, like such as Germany, is doing it for the economy, for their like interests. But they see, I mean, who doesn't think what Israel today is doing is a crime, is wrong, and there is like the ICJ rulings about the occupation. But I think they want to defend their complicity.
But also there was in Germany, in the media, right, at that time, there was this idea that Palestinian people were assimilated with Hamas or with the most extremist group anytime. That was also that. How did you feel that?
It's I mean, feeling it very, very hard and very bad. This hypocrisy is not just suffering it because of this like position, but always Palestinian people really a subject of like facing this hypocrisy and complicity by the West with Israel against what it does against us. Like, and for a long time we've been calling for these governments such as Germany, France, to put a limit and to stop what's happening. But and being in a place and calling for ceasefire, for sending weapons to Israel, they got like angry and they got mad. Like, what did we call for? Like, stop killing us. This is this is clearly what we said. Stop the killing, stop the bloodbath that's happening. We didn't call for another thing.
Yeah. You want to add something?
No, I was just thinking about how this was February, so at the time the word ceasefire was considered controversial.
Yeah.
And I think at the time, you know, it was 20,000 Palestinians who were killed in Gaza. Now it's not so controversial, and you know, you hear people like Joe Biden calling for a ceasefire, like they are Costa Rica, you know, calling for, like, of course they should not just call it, but it's very sad that, you know, at the time that it matters. I think 2 years from now, 3 years from now, people, even those who criticize our speech will look back at it and understand, like, that they were on the wrong side of history. I really believe this will change quite quickly in the next years to come. Yeah.
And we lost so much time, and we are still losing time every second as we speak.
Yeah.
Yuval, just a question for you. Over the last year, as I said, you published some of very important stories about this war. It was mostly in the media plus 972, also in partnership with the media local call. One was about how Israel used IA to target tens of thousands of Gazans as suspects, with little human oversight and an impressive number of mistakes and casualties. There was another one about what you call very early in this war, the quote, Israeli mass assassination factory in Gaza. And also another one about the complicity of giant tech companies such as Amazon, Google, or Microsoft in these mass killings. These technological aspects, they are very often forgotten in the conversation, but your reporting shows that it's really crucial in this war.
Yes, it is. So as you said, I mean, these are investigations that are based on interviews that I had with Israeli whistleblowers, so mainly Israeli intelligence officers, who some of them are former and many of them are current, so they are serving in different kinds of intelligence bodies. And I think there are three key findings to the investigations. I mean, the first is a program called Lavender, which is based on AI, and the military used it to mark 37,000 people in Gaza as suspected Hamas or Islamic Jihad militants. And the way it worked is that it scanned most of the communications of most people in Gaza and gave almost everybody of the 2.3 million people a rating between 1 to 100 based on how similar they were to what the military calls ground truth, which is like a known list of Hamas operatives. It's classic AI, but it was, in this case, used to create what is essentially a kill list of individuals. And this was authorized during the first weeks after October 7th, despite the fact that the military knew that 1 out of 10 people on that list, so 10% of the people on this very, very long list, were not actually in the military wing or were loosely related to the military wing, but they were not militants. And they knew because they checked. They did a small sampling. This is what you do with AI. But the even more important decision, the one with the most horrific consequences for human lives, is not only this list, it's the decision to bomb these militants or these suspected militants when they are inside the civilian spaces, so when they enter their family houses at
with
night.
Huge bombs.
With 2,000-pound bombs, M84 bombs, mainly supplied by the US, dumb bombs, meaning they're not guided missiles, so you target one individual in a building which has 2 floors or 3 floors. And another program called Where is Daddy specifically searched to carry out these assassination strikes when these individuals are going back to their houses with And this is one of the main reasons, I believe, this policy of targeting militants, not when they are engaged in battle, but when they go back to their houses while destroying the entire house and killing. The rates were up to 20 civilians for the lower-ranking militants and hundreds of civilians for single assassination strikes against the higher-ranking ones. This is one of the main reasons for thousands of Palestinian families who were just completely wiped out. Yes, and you can read it on 972 magazine. It's a very long investigation.
It's long, it's in English, but it's worth reading if you have a chance to do that. Maybe just, and then I have a last question for Basel, but you said at the beginning of your answer that many people talk with you, also like in the intelligence community in Israel, people currently working in the intelligence community right now. It means that in the state apparatus of Israel, a lot of people want to say the truth about what's happening right now. So they don't always share all the goals of the government, or what do they speak with you?
I mean, obviously there are people who are like that, but it's not a lot. And actually compared to the past, it's much less than you expect. I mean, if you think about it, you know, the second Intifada created Breaking the Silence, which is an Israeli organization of veterans who speak about the occupation. In 2002, when Israel bombed Salah Shadeh, who was the head of the Hamas military wing, so it's a very important military target for Israel, like equivalent to Mohammed Deif. And they bombed him and killed 19 people, including 14 children. This was in 2002. At the time, this caused a huge controversy in Israel. Ministers called it a form of state terrorism in 2002. People went out against it, people signed letters. There were very large list of pilots who wrote like a refusnik letter that they are refusing to participate in these kinds of bombings. This policy in 2002, what happened to Salah Shadeh, has now multiplied thousands of times over, again and again, and for targets that are not Salah Shadeh, for targets that have little to no military value. Yet, you don't see the same kind of reaction in Israeli society. Of course, it can partially be explained by October 7th, but it's been a year since October. I think there are more reasons here happening. So yes, there are individuals from within the system who are whistleblowers who want to reveal certain elements that they find morally wrong, but I am surprised by how little that exists today in Israeli society compared to even 20 years ago.
Do you have the feeling that your point of view is really like a minority point of view right now in the Israeli society?
Yeah, I know. It's a very, very much a minority point of view. And I think, you know, I think it will take time. I see most of my work in front of the Israeli society. I mostly write in Hebrew. Like, this is what, you know, it's kind of strange for me to be in France and something new. And we don't have, like, the reason why I think the United States has to intervene, not only because they are complicit, or France, is because we don't have that time right now. I mean, I believe societies can change, societies have changed, and I think the Israeli society has to change, but this will take years and years and years, and I think the people of Gaza do not have years and years and years to wait, which is why we need to enforce things from the outside at this point.
Two last questions for you, Basel. In a few days, there is an American election, Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, she doesn't want to stop the US to send weapons to Israel, but Donald Trump, he said it, will let Netanyahu do whatever he wants. Are you afraid of this election?
Which evil will win?
Yeah.
I mean, where the US is the main reason for us as Palestinians, and I believe in it. Like, all our suffer, all the time that we are suffering is because of the US, not just because Kamala Harris, not because of Trump, but since long time ago. Since decades, the US have been using the veto against the recognition of Palestinian state, and they have been saying all these decades that they believe that the only path to end this is two-state solution. So they say something and they do another thing. And now, like, what we faced in this administration by supporting Israel and back it in this genocide, killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. Now, before the election, they play the same game, that they're working for two-state solution, for a ceasefire, but they keep fund this genocide. I mean, we're afraid from America, but by whose leader, I don't know if that's, for me, there's no difference between any of them. They're both like supporting our killings.
And to And on this note, you're doing this movie, you're showing this movie in France right now. What are your hopes? What makes you still here and still advocating for the movie and talking about the movie? What is in your heart about maybe the impact of this movie and the changes that can happen?
Like what is in my heart always that the people in the streets, the individuals, the voters for the governments in everywhere are, from my perspective, are good people mostly, and those people need who would come and show them and who would do something and show them what's really happening, so they would see the whole truth from their eyes. And I hope that they don't see it and feel sorry about what's happening to us, but to do action, whatever action that could help us when they vote for the parliament, when they stand in the street to protest this occupation and genocide, whatever small action that they can do, it's really mean for us a lot, and that might help us, like all of us together, to do something to stop this.
As I said, you said that a few days ago, being silent is being complicit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Yuval Abraham. Merci, Basel Adra. Votre film No Other Land sort au cinéma en France le 13 novembre. Merci d'être passé sur Mediapart. Mediapart qui fait ses émissions parce que vous êtes abonné à Mediapart. C'est comme ça qu'on peut les faire. Donc, si vous le pouvez, abonnez-vous à Mediapart. À très vite.